Good evening, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. This is Switch again, back for your third and final video blog of the night for October 8, 2014, around 8:10 p.m. in Billerica, Massachusetts. The sun's gone down and it's dark out. We're going to go lows into the 40s and tomorrow highs in the 60s in an average fall day. Some news to report. Sad news from Hollywood. Actress Sarah Goldberg, who was in the television show Seventh Heaven, passed away at the age of 40. Prayers to her family. And it's also National Walk to School Day. And only 2 more days until the 2014-2015 UMass Lowell hockey season starts. We're going to be facing off against Boston College. They're the 2-time defending Hockey East champions. And the game's going to be on NESN and the Riverhawks Radio Network, 900 ESPN out of Nashville, New Hampshire, and 980 WCAP in Lowell. And it's a Blew Out t-shirt giveaway night. They have some good promotions there at the Songus Center at UMass Lowell, so be there. And that's about it on the news. My next subject is my third and final video blog. It's about the classic game show Beat the Clock. Beat the Clock was one of the most famous game shows of all time, famous stunt show produced by Mark Goodson and Bill Todman, and it lasted over 28 years in several different runs. It was a great show. It started on March 23rd, 1950, on prime time on CBS television, hosted by Bud Collier, and the assistant on there was Roxanne, who wore a polka dot dress. And this is how Beat the Clock was played. It was like couples, married couples, or boyfriend or girlfriend, or significant others will appear on the stage, and sometimes they brought their children along, and Bud Collier and talked to them and stuff like that. And then they played some stunts, and the first stunt was $100 worth of prizes, and if they had to beat the clock with a stunt, sometimes stunts were amazing, but sometimes they couldn't use their hands or legs or whatever. They had to do an object through their back or side or hips, and they had to beat it between 30 and 60 seconds. And if they beat that one, they get $100 worth of prizes, and then they go to a second stunt for $200. And if they beat that within the 60 up to 60 seconds, they would go for the jackpot clock, which was a famous quote or saying, "scrambled up." And it's usually the wife would have had it to, or the lady would have had it to unscramble it within 20 seconds for a bigger prize, which was a television set or a trip or whatever. And if they lost that, if they didn't beat the clock within 60 seconds or whatever the time, they would lose what they won at all, and they could not appear on, and the game would be over for them. And sometimes there would be a bell ringing, and that means they would have got the bonus stunt, which was very, very hard. The most famous bonus stunt was trying to get a toupee on the head of the man thrown by the woman, and that was one of the most hardest stunts of all time. And Beat the Clock was a hit for CBS for many, many years. It was in the top 30 for several years. The show's popularity grew, and Roxanne's popularity was even bigger than host Bud Collier's, and there was rumors that Bud Collier was jealous of Roxanne's success, but that could not be proven and stuff. And this continued, like Beat the Clock continued to be more popular into 1956 in primetime, when Roxanne left and they were different models, but they did not eclipse the popularity of Roxanne. And CBS debuted a daytime version of Beat the Clock on September 16th, 1967, and that lasted through a few months. CBS canceled the primetime version on February 16th, 1958, but the daytime one continued until 1961. Around the summer of 1958, it went to ABC, and during the daytime version, the contestants continued to play the stunts until they lost, so they could be on there as many stunts as they want, and they would win dollars like $100, $200, $300, $400, $500. The last Beat the Clock, hosted by Bud Collier, aired on January 27th, 1961. Bud Collier hosted Beat the Clock for 11 years. And during that time, it was one of the most popular game shows on television. The late actor James Dean was actually worked on some stunts for the original Beat the Clock, and it was taped in New York City. Beat the Clock. 8 years later, Goodson-Todman revives Beat the Clock as a regular Monday through Friday game show on syndication, and it started on September 8, 1969, hosted by Jack Nas, and was taped in New York City for the first year. And the rest of this, from the second season to fourth season, it was taped in Montreal, Canada, to save production cost. The game was played like this, but there was two teams, a man and a woman. They could be a married couple or dating or just friends, and this is how it was played. The first team would play a stunt. They would have up to 60 seconds, and if they beat the clock within half the time, they could do an additional stunt, and they could win bonus money from $10 to $50. And after they won that stunt, they would go to a money board which had Beat the Clock, and they would pick out any letter, and hidden in it was like, a lot of them were $25, then $50, $100. There was one with $200, and they would alternate that with cash bonuses. They would teams would alternate from each stunt, doing it alternated. And about season 2, they had a celebrity appear on Beat the Clock, and sometimes the celebrities would help the contestants, or sometimes they would have a celebrity do a stunt, and couples would have to vote on if that celebrity would be successful in beating the clock. If they voted yes or no, if they were right or wrong. If they were right, they would win money. If they were wrong, they didn't win any money. And sometimes there was some questions at the end for to do with intuition and stuff and like that, like human nature stuff, and it was pretty good. Jack Nas was host of Beat the Clock from 1969 to 1972, and he left because of the cost from him going from Montreal, Canada to Los Angeles, California. He lived in LA, and it was commuting that far on airplane, and plus through another country. It was costing him a lot of money. He was actually losing money doing that. So in 1972, Goodson-Todman named Gene Wood, who was the announcer of Beat the Clock, as new host of Beat the Clock, and it was rebranded the all-new Beat the Clock. And they had a new theme song and stuff, and it still had celebrities, and the gameplay was still the same, but it only lasted 2 more years, and then it got canceled in 1974 due to production costs, because it was being filmed in Canada. And these Beat the Clock was shown in Boston on WSBK TV 38 for a few years, and then WKBG Channel 56, and it was 5 more years before Beat the Clock was revived in 1979. September 17th, 1979, it debuted on CBS Daytime. It was hosted by Monty Hall, who's famous for hosting Let's Make a Deal. Beat the Clock was the only television game show Monty Hall hosted after forming his own production company, Atos Hall Production, when they did the Let's Make a Deal. And it was called the all-new Beat the Clock, and it was 2 married couples or dating or whatever, and first would be a stunt where both couples would participate, and the first one who won $500, and they would go on to another stunt which they could win more money, like $500. And then the second part of the game was the same thing. They would have like a face-off stunt, and the first couple to do that, they would win $500 more and go on to another stunt. And then there was a bonus shuffleboard thing, which was marked between $300 and $1,000, and it usually ladies went first, and if a team won more money, they would get an extra disc, and it would go from 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 1,000. That means that would be 10 times the amount. It could be play for $10,000, and Monty Hall explained it, a word of caution when he said it. If it would go over, like if it would go off of play, it would be worthless. If you did not reach at least 300, it would be taken off the board. And whoever got the best position would win it for what they would play for, which it could be $10,000. And then the winning couple would do the bonus stunt, and they did it until they won it, or they lost next game. And this format only lasted 7 weeks because of bad ratings, and for it to be revived, for it to continue, they had celebrities play it. It was renamed the All-New All-Star Beat the Clock, and that the All-New All-Star Beat the Clock, it was not successful for CBS, and it was canceled on February 1st, 1980. Monty Hall said on record he hated the All-New All-Star Beat the Clock by heart. His heart, he hated it with his heart because the stunts weren't that as great. The format wasn't that great as well, and adding celebrities halfway through a show wasn't good, because it would probably, that show was not doomed to fail from the start, and it would be 20 years before Beat the Clock would be revived again, this time in 2002 on PAX Network, which is now Ion Television. It was filmed in Orlando, Florida. It was hosted by Gary Crone, and he was assisted by Julie Lynn Parker. And this Beat the Clock was combined with the elements of like Name That Tune and trivia game shows and stuff like that, because they bid on who could do the stunt first and stuff like that, who could finish it or stuff. It was a very kind of lame concept. And then the bonus round was like they had 30 seconds to grab so many stuff from like bills and stuff. That bills could be money, prizes, and stuff like that. It only lasted a year on the PAX Network until finally in 2003 they pulled the plug, and they have not revived Beat the Clock ever since. Reruns of Beat the Clock, all versions except for the one on PAX TV, has been shown on the Game Show Network or GSN. The one with like the old black and white Beat the Clock hosted by Bud Collyer was shown on GSN in the 90s, and 2006 was the last time it was on GSN. And also the Monty Hall version of Beat the Clock shown on the overnight hours in 2007 through 2009, and the Jack Nas and Gene Wood one was shown from time to time on GSN in the 90s and in the early 2000s and stuff. And one of the most famous sayings for Beat the Clock is number one's clock watcher, Bud Collyer. And he says at the end of this show, maybe it's next time you beat the clock. Beat the Clock was one of the most famous stunt shows of all time. It's probably one of the top 10 best game shows that Mark Goodson and Bill Todman ever produced. And it's still stood the test of time. It's one of those game shows that gets revived all the time and for various degrees of success. But I think we might not see another Week 5 version of Beat the Clock anytime soon, because the owners of the Goodson-Todman game shows, Fremantle, have bigger fish to fry than reviving another version of Beat the Clock. They have other revived projects they're working on right now. And that's about it on that. And tomorrow will be 3 more video blogs. I'm not going to decide which ones except the ones I confirmed tomorrow for you watching right now, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. The top 10 video games of all time, and then I'll tell you the rest of the 2 if you're my Facebook friend and stuff like that. And don't forget, soon, very soon, video blogs for Julie Broughton, Local News 6, Heidi Lee Pratt, Janelle Tobin, Crystal Pistol, Dee Patel, Tony Ramos, Bruce Cronin, Donald Beauregard, Angelo, and others. Don't forget, in a few more weeks is my 2014-2015 NBA prediction one, and coming in November will be my first ever Q&A video blog. You send me in your questions, Facebook friends and YouTube followers, private message me, and they'll be read. And don't forget, have a good night, everybody. See you tomorrow morning. Bye now.